Hello and welcome to the A-List. I'm Jebb, and joining me today is Cisco Cotto. Cisco Cotto is a talk radio show host for WLS-890 AM. Thanks for being on the show, Cisco.
My pleasure, Luke. Thanks for having me.
So what exactly is it that you do?
Well, during the day we talk about the news of the day with a talk radio audience. So it's great because we get feedback from people back and forth via call-ins, talking about politics or other news of the day.
Okay, so how did you get started in this? Like, what inspired you to join this type of field?
As a kid, I grew up a Cubs fan.
Really?
Yes, I know. I probably alienated half the audience.
Hey, I'm feeling you right here. I bleed Cubby Blue, you know what?
I loved Harry Carey, growing up listening to him. And so one day at my high school, which is Aurora Christian out in Aurora, we had the broadcaster for the Kane County Cougars who came in to talk to the school. After it, just went up and talked to the guy and said, hey, I might be interested in this. And he, out of the kindness of his heart, actually arranged an internship at WMBI Radio in Chicago for me, and also a day out at the ballpark. And so from that, I was set. I knew I wanted to get into radio.
Really? So what exactly do you do now? What does an average day in the life of Cisco Cotto look like right now?
Well, to prep for the show, I wake up about 4:30 in the morning. And I immediately get on my laptop and just start seeing what's going on out there, trying to figure out what's big news today, what would be interesting for people to talk about. I'm looking for audio sound bites, maybe, of different newsmakers.
Sure.
And then I'm trying to figure out what would be interesting to talk about. We can't just say it's in the news, so let's talk about it, but what do people really want to talk about in depth? And so I plan all of that, and by 9 a.m. I'm in the studio ready to do the show.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. So, going from meeting this guy at the Kane County Cougars game, or at school rather, where's the job taking you, to get to where you are now? Like, where have you gone?
Well, I went to school at Western Illinois University. I knew I wanted to get into either radio or TV, but I was leaning toward radio. And so I went to school at Western Illinois University, studied radio and TV broadcasting and political science, which is kind of neat because now I talk about politics on the radio, so it worked out pretty well. From there, I got an internship at WMAQ Radio here in Chicago, which is 670 AM. They're now sports talk.
Okay.
And I was hired out of that as a news reporter. And so for a period of about, 7 years or so, I was a news reporter here in Chicago. Then I decided, though, the talk show hosts seem like they're having way more fun than the news reporters. They really get into it, and so that's why I wanted to make the transition to talk.
So then you just said, hey, I want to be in talk radio, or how did that type of an opening, open for you?
Yeah, I wrestled around with it for a while and finally found a boss who was willing to take me on and give me a shot. They were a little skeptical at first. They weren't quite sure that a news reporter could make the jump. But I told them that what I was doing is being the unbiased news reporter on the radio, but then turning off the microphone and yelling and screaming about whatever was going on during the day and throwing my opinion all around. And so I told them, I said, just let me do that with the microphone open as a talk show host, and this will work out. And that eventually led me to this midday show now at WLS.
Really? So did you ever do sports along the way? I mean, did you do other things? Like, you talked a little bit about it, like when you were in college, did you work on different shows of sorts? Yeah,
in college I did some play-by-play of football, basketball, and baseball. Which, baseball, I mean, I just love it. I mean, it's so great. You get to sit back, I know you're a big baseball fan too, and you're feeling it. Basketball and football, they were okay, but being able to just sit back and relax and call a baseball game, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that professionally. I'm guessing not, but it was kind of cool to have those memories in college.
Yeah, not everybody gets to be Pat Hughes,
Yeah. Oh, it'd just be great. Wouldn't that? I mean, it's like it's a dream job.
It would be my dream job. No big deal.
Well, you may someday be there. Probably not me, but maybe you can do it.
Yeah, we'll see. No promises or whatnot. So, coming out of college and doing all this play-by-play stuff, where was kind of the first stop along the way? Was it WMAQ?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first stop was WMAQ, where I had an internship, expecting that I was going to go for a master's degree. I figured I'm going to get a little more schooling and then maybe try to break into the business. But out of my summer internship, they were looking for a rookie reporter, and I fit the bill, and so I was very blessed to be able to be hired by them. I never imagined that my first job would be in Chicago, but it was, and it's great that I've been able to work here the whole time.
So you're saying you never had to work your way back to Chicago. You actually just got to start right here.
Yeah, which is a little weird sometimes because
Yeah.
I talk to people who have done that and they kind of grumble a little bit when they hear my story. What I tell them though is when I was in college at Western, I was doing everything I possibly could to try to get experience in radio.
Really?
I worked at 3 different campus radio stations.
Oh, wow.
I worked at another radio station off campus. It was in a little town called Canton, Illinois, 45 minutes away from campus. I was working there on the weekends, driving 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back,
Yeah.
working 12-hour shifts. Worked on the campus TV station. While a lot of my friends were out on Friday nights having a good time and making some great memories, I was.
You were making great radio shows.
Well, I was working on it. It certainly wasn't great back in college, I can guarantee you that. But I was getting experience because radio is like anything else. I mean, the more you do it, the better you get.
Sure.
And so I knew at that time I was going to have to really get my hands dirty and do this stuff. So I started out already having several radio jobs. It just seems like I got my first job in Chicago.
Okay, fair enough. So, I mean, is there any advice you would give to somebody that wanted to go into radio now? I mean, would you say go to school for it, or would you say, do something completely different?
Yeah, I'd have probably 2 bits of advice. I mean, certainly go to school and get some training. They have to make sure that they're paying attention to everything that is going on in the news. They still have to read these things called newspapers.
Who would have thought?
I know, a lot of people don't even think they exist anymore, but they do. Newspapers, blogs, TV newscasts, just really absorb everything. And that includes the business section and the sports section and the lifestyle section.
Sure.
Really make sure you know everything that's going on. And also, get experience. I mean, be willing to work for free if you have to for a while. In order to get the experience so that you learn and make mistakes in a spot that isn't going to cost you your job.
Sure.
Farther on down the line, it could really hurt you if you end up making some of those mistakes.
But yeah, setting yourself up for an opportunity or a job where you can make the small mistakes that don't particularly blow your career.
Yeah, and then
great.
later on down the line, you get to tell people that you've already done things, that you're not just starting out with an education, but that's not your first opportunity.
Huh. Okay, so, is there one particular, question that you get asked all the time about being in radio?
It's the silliest thing, but I'm always asked, because in radio you have no TV cameras, you have no still images, I mean, it's just the microphone and the speakers. People always end up asking me if I have ever worn pajamas to the radio station. I don't know why. It's the weirdest thing.
It seems like a logical connection.
Well, they wonder, why don't I just go in pajamas every day? Because no one would know whether I'm in a 3-piece suit or whether I'm in pajamas. I have not worn pajamas to the radio station yet. It is still an office. It is still professional. Really? Maybe someday I might get the nerve to go ahead and show up in pajamas, but I haven't yet.
Okay, fair enough. So, I got a little question. It's a little bit of a side tangent, but why exactly are so many of the radio stations in Chicago based out of the same buildings?
They have some owners that own multiple radio stations. Like in our building, for example, there were 3 radio stations there. When we were moved there, we were all owned by the same company.
Really?
One of them has been sold off. But they're still in there. They're still paying rent and have their radio studios there.
Okay.
There's another company in town, CBS Radio, that has, I think it's 8 radio stations.
Is that in the Prudential building?
Yeah, it is. They
Really?
have all of their radio stations there on separate floors with their own space. I think it ends up being done for economic reasons, being able to negotiate lower rent if you're bringing in a bigger group of people. And also, you can have management that are overseeing more people by having them all in one place. I think that's the reason why they do it.
Okay, fair enough. So is there one particular event that kind of sticks out to you from your past? Like, is there one, I don't know, maybe it's a sporting event that you covered in college, or maybe it was one news show you were a part of, or maybe it's the talk show you work on right now. Is there one thing that's kind of your favorite venue that you've worked at so far?
I've had a lot of great experiences in radio. I really have. Being a reporter, I've been able to cover so many great events. Being a talk show host, I've been able to discuss some pretty great events, like the death of Osama bin Laden. I mean, that's a piece of history that I was able to come on the radio the next morning and give my feelings and listen to the listeners' opinions. And so it was neat to, in some small way, be able to be a part of that. I got to cover the White Sox in the World Series. Actually, down in Houston, I was on the field when the White Sox won the World Series.
They gave you tickets to go to it?
Well, it was a press pass, so I was there as a reporter. And what I loved about that was all of my Sox fan friends seeing me in the background on TV as the guys were spraying champagne all each other, knowing that I didn't care that the White Sox had won the World Series. It was kind of it was a little twisted, but it was a lot of fun.
Fair enough. Well, you know, Cisco, it's been great having you on the show. I've really enjoyed it, and you know, that's actually all the time we have for today. So until next time, I'm with Jebb, and this is the A-List.